Bizarre Brain Comics.
Hello, welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I'm Gary, your host. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk about the characters and creators, and then examine the stories and the art. This time around, I'm going to take a look at this fine piece of comic literature from DC Comics, The Wrath of the Spectre. This is from 1988, reprinting Spectre stories from the 70s, with written by Michael Fleisher and drawn by Jim Aparo. See what the big book of knowledge has to say about the Spectre. The Wrath of the Spectre, number 2, 1988, DC Comics, reprinting stories from the 70s. I'm not sure the actual years. I'm thinking 76, 77, because I had a couple of the original issues for this, and these were reprinted from Weird Adventure Comics. It was just adventure comics, and they went and stuck Weird at the beginning because of the Spectre. And then they had regular background stories such as Aquaman and the like. Backup stories. It was written by Michael Fleisher, drawn. And the story we're going to look at was drawn by Jim Aparo with inks by Frank Thorne. Other inkers worked on the other stories. Okay, and the Spectre is the name given to any of a number of anti-hero characters from DC. Of course, they're all related. And he first appeared in More Fun Comics number 52 in 1940. And he was created by Jerry Siegel and Bernard Bailey. Jerry Siegel, that name sound familiar? Yes, he is the co-creator of Superman. Yeah, he along with the Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, they created Superman, which first appeared in 1938, just a few years before this. And the Spectre is literally a ghost. He's literally a specter. It's the spirit of murdered police detective Jim Corrigan, and he is the spirit of vengeance, walking the world as the human Corrigan and possessing the powers of a virtual god, able to manipulate time and space and matter and energy. That he needs a human host to maintain a level of impartiality in his judgment of evildoers. He is arguably the most powerful being in the DC universe, and he has been affiliated with the Justice Society of America and the Justice League of America, and he often works with other magic-based beings. He was a principal character in, if you've read it, the great miniseries and compiled into a graphic novel of Kingdom Come, and he was a principal character in that, acting along with a human host as the narrator of the story. Okay. Let's join with the Spectre in destroying these evildoers in the wrath of the Spectre. Here we go. You can see that front cover of Wrath of the Spectre #2. But then let's take it one step further. It's a wraparound cover. Drawn by Jim Aparo. Featuring 2 images from the inside stories. Of course, as it says here, 3 controversial classics. Yeah, these stories did, not just these, but all the stories are reprinted for this series, this mini-series. Drew a lot of positive and negative criticism for the very seemingly brutal, although bloodless, brutal conclusions and the wrath being meted out by this Spectre character. And yet they are brutal. The stories, I think, are pretty well crafted, although relatively short, because they're not full-length stories. They were the lead stories in the respective issues. But they're one and done, which is what I like. But it doesn't. Sometimes a little more of the story might have been nice, of the backstory, but it's not necessary for what we see here. It's almost kind of like just desserts. Some of them are something that might have appealed to the EC horror comics, or maybe something from the Twilight Zone or Night Gallery. Okay, and Michael Fleisher, who was the writer, from 1942 to 2018. He was an American comic book writer, known for his work at DC Comics in the 70s and 80s. His most notable work was on The Spectre and on Jonah Hex. He was raised in New York City, and he spent Saturdays for years watching Western double features at the movie theater with his father, which prepped him for writing the Western feature of Jonah Hex. In 1972, he started scripting for DC, starting at the Secrets of Sinister House, which was a gothic romance, and the House of Mystery and House of Secrets, etc., those mystery titles. Later, he worked on Shade the Changing Man from 77-78, as well as on Batman titles. He was also an editor on Plop and Adventure Comics. Plop. It's quite a bit different there. Well, not really. Same kind of twisty horror stories, just told in a more humorous fashion, as I mentioned before. And he worked on 10 issues of The Spectre with Jim Aparo in 74. I said that wrong. In 1974, he wrote Jonah Hex for over a decade, starting in 74, on Weird Westerns, which included the science fiction version Hex, in which Jonah Hex was teleported to a post-apocalyptic future. And in the 80s, he had a libel suit against author Harlan Ellison in the 80s, and he lost that because apparently Harlan Ellison in an interview said some less than spectacular things about his writing, particularly about the Spectre. His run on the Spectre, which I think was really great. He lost that suit though. Then he wrote, but it nearly killed his career. He wrote for the British publication 2000 AD, and eventually he earned a PhD in anthropology. Yeah, and he traveled, did some stuff in Nairobi for several years, and other stuff. He wrote 3 volumes of the Encyclopedia of Comic Books. Wow! So he did a lot more than just write the Spectre. Yeah, and talked about Jim Aparo, who's the main artist here before, and then we're going to talk about Frank Thorne, and who inked the story we're going to look at. And I'll cover some Frank Thorne some more. Okay, Jim Aparo, he's like my favorite Batman artist, and I'll probably have to say he's probably my favorite Aquaman artist as well. And then Frank Thorne, he worked for DC and other publishers for many years. A journeyman artist. He did quite a bit for Gold Key with the Mighty Samson, and some Western stuff at DC, most notably the what's his name, Hawk, son of Tomahawk, which is a short-lived Western trying to keep Tomahawk going, and did some issues of Korok, son of Tarzan at DC, as well as a host of other things. But he really gained notoriety in the 70s for his long run on for Marvel on Red Sonja, and he was so well known for his lovely ladies. We'll talk more about him another time. On with the Spectre. Okay, this is the Nightmare Dummies and the Spectre. And it has this one here. So you can see why this image seems very gruesome and brutal. Here, meat cleaver flying around, chopping this woman into pieces. But things are not as they seem. This is a lady who Jim Corrigan had been having a bit of a relationship with. And that's what we see here on the splash page. So it starts off, here's this truck, and the drivers just talking, being regular truck drivers, going to deliver the load of mannequins somewhere, and they hear a noise. Something stops, open it up, and there's just the mannequins there. Then, when the guy's in the truck, the doors slam shut by themselves. As the other driver, he gets out, and what's going on? And then the doors burst open, and the mannequins attack. That ought to be the title of a book or a movie: When Mannequins Attack. And the mannequins are very brutal. The guy's fighting back with a crowbar, to no avail. Then we see later the police on the scene, and they're trying to figure out what happened. And it says, "Well, looks like the mannequins attacked these guys." That's crazy. Yeah, as crazy as it sounds, but they were killed, in the positions and stuff. It looks like the mannequins did this. Well, somebody obviously did it and then staged it. Then I have another scene at a sporting goods store. There's hunting, and this one mannequin of a hunter just suddenly comes to life and blows people away with a shotgun. And in another store, the mannequin brides attack. All the mannequins in the store going crazy. Here's Jim Corrigan returning in a cab from the airport, and stopped next to the police car at the red light, and he overhears a call on the radio for something. He takes, and suddenly he's gone, because he has become the Spectre and gone to that location, and seeing the mannequins still attacking people. And he makes short work of the mannequins, brings that to a conclusion. But it was still too late. There's been a lot of mayhem here in this in the store. I'm seeing this image, and this gives you a good view. Even though he did he was doing the inks, you can really see the Frank Thorne inking style coming through over the Jim Aparo beautiful pencils, because the two worked so well and complemented one another. And the storytelling is I mean, this whole panel here is just a lovely panel of mayhem. It's all the information there that you need. And Corrigan appears on the scene. Says, "Corrigan, how did you get here so fast? Didn't your plane just get in about 5 minutes ago?" yeah. So he looks and he sees the mannequins. Has the Monarch name. All the mannequins involved in this are from Monarch. And here we see at the Monarch Company this one old man making mannequins, and he's talking to them.
"Oh my, won't you be a handsome devil?"
As he's making his mannequins. And there's the owner of the company talking to him. Says, kind of harumping, because they have the plant making mannequins in an automated fashion. Would have the one man back all by himself in a workshop making mannequins by hand in the old-fashioned way. And they've just been doing this because this guy has been here forever at this plant. Then the secretary comes in and gets the owner, and it's Corrigan. Corrigan is there to see him and talk about the mannequins, and he wants to look at the plant, sees how the mannequins are being made, and you can see here on the machines of the torsos hanging here, which if they weren't mannequins would look very, very gruesome and very weird in a way, and then the molds and stuff, how the pieces are being made. And then he shows Ezekiel, the old man Ezekiel, here in the back, making his mannequins in the old-fashioned way, by hand. And he says how, "Oh, they are alive," because it says he talks to them as if they're alive. "Oh, they are alive. They're living beings." Says, "How about that, Mr. Borosovich? You think your mannequins might suddenly come to life and start killing people for no reason?"
"Not for no reason. They might kill if they got angry enough, and I wouldn't blame them for it either."
He's just talking. He just sounds like a crazy old man. And then Corrigan thanks him and off. So, meanwhile, just outside, this lady in his car pulls up, and it's what's her name? Gwen. It's his sort of girlfriend. And she stops up and says, "I called the precinct. They said you were here. Jim, I've got to talk to you. It's been weeks since I've seen you." So it's because we can't. Because she knows he's the Spectre. Apparently. From their dialogue. And he says, "It's too painful. I can't go through this, and I can't put you through this." And Gwen, yada, yada, yada. Or maybe it's just because he's the detective. Maybe she doesn't know he's the Spectre. But that's his reason why he doesn't want to have a even though he wants to, he can't have a relationship with her. Meanwhile, the old man had come out and sees her and talks. And the old man is he's just a Frank Thorne old man all over. Okay, so he takes her in, wants to talk with her, and then the scene changes. Sits her down, and he's talking to her. "Make some tea." And then scene changes later at Corrigan's apartment. And it's Gwen. She's at the door. "Hello, Gwen." Notice she doesn't speak at all this whole time. She comes in, and while his back is turned, she takes out a meat cleaver and goes to whack him one. And it passes right through him because he's not really there. "That was very foolish, my dear. Very foolish indeed. For to arouse the anger of Jim Corrigan is to tempt the wrath of the Spectre."
and she is startled and surprised, and the meat cleaver by itself flies around and whacking her into pieces, and it falls apart. It's going to be a mannequin, and he knows exactly who had done it, because it's the fantastic workmanship. And there's the old man. Oh, that's cool. Very evil glare. And there she is in her undies, tied up. Soon, my luscious, my trusty Gwen Sterling mannequin will have finished her work, and you will have your pesky mirror, Mr. Corrigan, all to yourself, just as I promised. But then the Spectre is on the scene. He passes through the ceiling as he descends into the workshop. And he does his usual Spectre routine. When the Spectre comes calling, the lives of evil men are forfeit. And he gets all his mannequins imbued with magically enlivened mannequins to come to attack the Spectre. As if that has anything. Save your magic, old man. You will need it to ease your boredom during the eternity in perdition that awaits you. And then all the mannequins melt away. It's very gruesome. Even though they're mannequins, it's very, very gruesome looking, because they look like people. And he threatens Gwen. And that's gone too far. Your mannequins have wrought evil deeds, Ezekiel. Now it is time for you to join them. Ooh, and we don't actually see what happens. Later, the owner of the mannequin factory is having all these mannequins hauled off and being burned. He said, "Hey guys, look at this one. It's an old geezer mannequin. And get a load of his kisser. Got a look in his eyes like he just seen a ghost." Ha ha! And that's the old man. And then we see, well, his arm falls off. Yeah, he's a mannequin, all right. And there he is, getting his just desserts as he is melted in the fire, because he was transformed into a mannequin. Oh, yes. You can see why it's kind of demented. And the following story is not as kind of similar. It has a character introduced who is a writer for a magazine, and is teamed up with Corrigan for a little bit because of the weird stuff that's been going on. He's been covering, and he looks like Clark Kent. They keep making reference. Now, when I had this when I was a kid and read it, I thought he was actually Clark Kent. He looks like Clark Kent, and they make references to him being Clark Kent, but he's not Clark Kent. Even Corrigan, he calls him Clark Kent. And that's not who he is. The cop here says, "Hey, Clark Kent, gee, are you really Superman?" Here's the story. And it brings things to life. The guy, because this guy sees the weird stuff. He uncovers the weird stuff. He's kind of like Kolchak in a way, from Kolchak the Night Stalker. And because he's being held prisoner by this gangster who's trying to kill the Spectre, but then this is how the Spectre takes care of him, turns him into wood, and he goes into the saw. Then there's this other one. This was they each have different anchors, and done, but all the artwork is done very well. Great panel-to-panel storytelling, good page layouts and stuff, but that reporter guy, he is also in this story too. So he tries to write about the Spectre, and no one believes him, and they won't print his story. Here he is with another event: mass murder, phosgene gas, some wacko Nazi wannabe, and his gang, and while he's trying to get away, the Spectre transforms the boat into a giant squid, and the squid eats him. And there's other weird stuff for the way these guys were killed. Oh. And he said, "Lieutenant, did you by any chance see any sort of strange force around here?" "Nope." And here we have a couple of the original covers. Yeah, that's the one with the song, and this is that one. And some nice work. See here, it's Weird Adventure Comics. So that's, I've run longer than I intended to. That's it for the Spectre. It was a really enjoyable. I think that they were so well written and beautifully drawn. And it is very, very ghastly, very Night Gallery, very EC. And I really like it. And thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment. Remember, comics are art.